Hello and welcome to This Really Happened, a place where unbelievable, heart-touching true stories come to life. Sometimes surprising, sometimes bittersweet, always real. Grab a drink and settle in. We're about to begin. Morning found Mary in a rush. Today at the hospital was marked by a mandatory medical checkup, and she absolutely had to see the doctors before her shift started. If only she could fit it into the allotted time, otherwise she'd have to stay late into the evening. Mary worked as a nurse, and the hospital walls were almost home to her. She loved her job, found meaning in it. However, one circumstance clouded her professional life: the constantly changing shift schedule. Often she grumbled when she was put on an unplanned night or 24-hour shift. Her colleagues, however, waved it off. "Oh, come on, Maz. You're the only one of us without kids, and an extra penny won't hurt. We all have families, worries." "I have a husband too," she retorted. In fact, her husband, Tom, wasn't bothered by his wife's evening and night shifts at all. "Maz, don't worry. Can't I heat up my own dinner? Or do I need a nanny to tuck me in? I'm a grown man." And so it turned out that Mary was most often sent on the most inconvenient shifts. That day, the young woman managed to see almost all the specialists before the start of the workday. Only the gynecologist remained. Mary was already about to leave the office, pulling on her clothes, when the doctor's words made her freeze. "Everything is developing normally. I think there's no cause for concern. But you shouldn't delay registering. Time is passing, and your age, alas, no longer allows for careless risks." Mary froze on the spot, unable to process what she had heard. "What do you mean? What development? Development of what? Do I have problems? Am I sick? Why do I need to register?" Her voice trembled with anxiety. The gynecologist laughed kindly. "My dear, pregnancy is not a disease, and certainly not a problem. You register so the doctor can monitor you. You're already 35, which frankly is a bit late for a first birth. I'll write you a certificate. Take it to your local gynecologist." I'm pregnant?" Mary whispered, her eyes wide. The doctor seemed to be losing patience. "Didn't you know?" "Madam, I have many patients. I've said everything. The rest is up to you. All questions should be directed to your doctor at your place of residence. Goodbye." Mary mechanically took the offered certificate, left the office, and wandered down the corridor. Thoughts swarmed in her head like a disturbed beehive. Pregnant? It can't be. They had tried for so long, lost hope such a long time ago, and now this news had hit her, knocking the ground out from under her feet. Of course, she had noticed her work uniform had become a bit tight, but she hadn't paid attention to it, blaming it on an increased appetite. She decided she had just pigged out a bit. But why such a sudden craving? Could it be because of pregnancy and her period? When was the last time? She couldn't remember. Oh God, she's pregnant. She needed to confirm this urgently. Mary hurried to the nurse's station. Her friend Stacy was already sitting there, engrossed in her phone. "Oh, Mazzy, you're back. What's wrong? You look terrible, all pale. Did something happen?" Stacy asked, looking up from the screen. Mary silently shook her head, but then decided, "Stace, you don't happen to have a pregnancy test, do you?" Stacy was known around the hospital as a bit of a flirt. She had romances not only outside the hospital, but within its walls too. Feelings sometimes struck at the most inconvenient times, and the girl didn't always worry about protection. That's why she always had pregnancy tests on hand. "Of course I do. You even ask," Stacy replied briskly, rummaging in her drawer. She pulled out a couple and handed them to Mary. "You know how to use them, I hope." She winked. But Mary wasn't in the mood for jokes. With a serious face, she took the tests, grabbed an empty sample jar from the table, and hurried to the restroom. A few minutes later, standing in the cramped cubicle, Mary held 2 tests in her hands. On both, 2 lines clearly appeared. She shifted her gaze from one to the other. 2 lines, and again 2 lines, bright, clear, even, no doubt. She was really pregnant. It happened just when she had finally let go of the situation and resigned herself to the thought of being childless. Mary couldn't work that day. She wrote a leave request, citing sudden indisposition. She needed to get home urgently to share this incredible news with her husband. Mary rode the bus, and every minute felt like an eternity. Why was it crawling so slowly, as if the whole world had conspired against her? Finally, she reached home. Entering the apartment, she took out the test. With a smile on her face, she headed towards the living room, clutching the precious strip in her hand, and instantly lost her voice. On their new sofa, covered with a throw, lay an unfamiliar girl, and Tom was hastily pulling on his trousers. His face was crimson, angry, and bewildered. He clearly hadn't expected his wife to catch him in such a delicate situation. What's happening?" Mary barely managed to whisper. "Nothing terrible is happening," Tom replied dully. The girl just blinked silently, pale with fear. Who knew what her lover's wife might do? What if she decided to pull her hair? Mary continued to clutch the test in her hand. In an instant, she understood that her fate had taken a sharp, unthinkable turn. The ground had disappeared from under her feet. It became hard to breathe. Nausea rose. Tom took her by the elbow and led her to the kitchen. Turning back, he quietly threw at the girl, "Get dressed quickly." Mary automatically walked into the kitchen and froze, staring at the bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the table. "Why did you come home so early?" her husband asked discontentedly. Mary turned a bewildered look on him. I felt sick, nauseous. I took leave," she stammered. Tom grunted and ruffled his hair. "You could have called, warned me you were coming home." Mary frowned. "I have to call and warn you I'm coming to my own home. Why? So you could hide your guest? Are you in your right mind, Tom? What's going on? What's wrong? Have you stopped loving me?" Tom avoided her gaze. "No, I just relaxed a bit, and don't you dare raise your voice at me. Don't make a scene." He peeked into the hallway. The front door slammed. The mistress had left. "Don't make a scene in front of whom, Tom? In front of your mistress? I have the right to shout as much as I want. You can't shut me up." Tom flared up. I think I'll leave for now. I'll come back when you've calmed down. You're making a scene over nothing. So what if I strayed a couple of times? What of it? I'm not leaving you. I'm living with you. That means everything is fine with me and there's nothing more to discuss. That's it. I'm leaving. We'll talk later when you can perceive the situation adequately. And while I'm gone, think about your behavior. Maybe you'll realize what you're doing wrong, that I had to seek comfort elsewhere. And by the way, unlike you, she doesn't throw tantrums, even though she knows I have a wife. She just enjoys the moment. I advise you to take note of that." And Tom left. A couple of minutes later, the front door slammed again. Mary stood in the kitchen, not moving. She clenched her fists. Something dug into her left palm. It was the pregnancy test. It was still clenched in her hand. And Tom hadn't even asked what it was. He hadn't even noticed it. Mary started to cry. Half an hour later, when the tears had subsided a little, Mary made a decision. She no longer wanted to live with this man. He had betrayed her, and it seemed she wasn't as necessary to him as she had wanted to believe. Staying in this house was unbearable, and Mary went to the hospital. Stacy was there. Perhaps her friend could somehow distract her from this pain. Stacy immediately saw from Mary's face that something had happened. "Maz, why are you back? You were feeling sick. What happened?" she asked anxiously. Mary couldn't hold back and burst into tears again. She told her friend everything. Stacy listened carefully, then sighed heavily. "Well, friend, you've had quite a day. Getting the most wonderful and the most terrible news at the same time is certainly a blow. It looks like your husband doesn't particularly want a child. Maybe you'll terminate?" Mary shook her head sharply. "What are you saying? No, no, never. I've dreamed of a child so much I won't give him up. This is my miracle. I'm going to file for divorce. The decision is made. I just need to leave Tom, move into my own apartment. I don't know how to do that. If I go back home, he'll either start persuading me or making a scene. Being pregnant, I won't withstand that pressure. He might convince me to stay, and I don't want to. I can't live with him after all this." And Mary covered her face with her hands, crying again. Stacy thoughtfully bit her lip, closing her eyes. Then she perked up. "Listen, I'll help you. Or rather, not me, but Jimmy. It's simple as can be." Jimmy was her brother, a great guy, cheerful, sociable. He got divorced a few years ago. His wife cheated, and Jim found out. When Mary met him, he was right after his divorce. She saw him often. He constantly visited his sister, and Mary liked talking to him. He was so smart, so considerate. One time Stacy told her, "Listen, I think Jimmy's got his eye on you. He shows up at the hospital way too often for no reason, as if he wants to see you." "Don't make things up, Stacy. I'm married. He doesn't look at me like that. You're just imagining it," Mary replied. Now Mary thought that Jim was the only one who could help. Tomorrow her husband is at work from morning till night. Mary and Stacy have a day off. Maybe this is really a good idea. They'll have time to pack her things and move them to Mary's apartment. How good it was that she hadn't rented it out to anyone after the last tenants. How well everything was falling into place. Mary agreed. Stacy called her brother and they arranged everything. Mary went to Stacy's to spend the night when their shift ended. Her husband called her all evening and night, but Mary didn't answer. The next day, Jim was at his sister's place by 7 in the morning. "Are you crazy? Why did you show up so early? I'm not even up yet," Stacy exclaimed indignantly. But Mary was already awake. While Stacy went back to sleep for half an hour, Mary made Jim breakfast and fed him. She didn't tell Jim anything about her problems with her husband, but it was clear from his face that he was eager for details. However, he didn't ask questions. He just said, "Maz, you can always count on me. I'm very sorry you're unhappy and your husband is a jerk. For a woman like you, I'd move mountains. I'd do everything to make her the happiest woman in the world. I would never trade you for anyone." Mary just nodded, but her heart felt warm and good from such sincere words. She noticed that when she accidentally touched his hand while passing a plate of pancakes, his hand trembled. Could Stacy have been telling the truth and Jim really liked Mary? Oh, come on, what kind of thoughts are these? They quickly moved Mary's things to her apartment, and Mary immediately felt better. Stacy was rushing off to a date with yet another suitor and left, leaving Jim and Mary alone. "You can go too. I can manage myself. Thank you so much," Mary said. But Jim just rolled up his sleeves and replied, "I'm not going anywhere until we're finished. You shouldn't lift heavy things. I'll help." So Stacy had told Jim about the pregnancy after all. Well, everyone would find out sooner or later anyway. Together they finished quickly. Jim helped a lot. He carefully offered her his hand when she stepped onto or down from a chair. He moved all the furniture so Mary could wash the floors. He fixed the toilet and washed the windows where Mary couldn't reach. Mary looked at him and thought, why wasn't Tom like this? He had never helped his wife like this, as a virtually stranger man was helping now. When they finished, Mary said, "Thank you, Jimmy dear. You are a very good person. Your future chosen one will be lucky. I myself wish I had exactly such a husband." Jim smiled. "So what's stopping you? I personally don't mind. Get the paperwork with your husband sorted out quickly, and I'll propose to you. Will you marry me, Maria?" Mary was speechless. What kind of jokes were these? She didn't know what to say and decided to play along. "Jim, I'm very flattered, but it's impossible. I'm pregnant with another man's child. What man would want to raise someone else's child? And I'm not going to get rid of it. So, unfortunately, I can't." Jim became serious. "I'm not just any man, Mary. I will treat your child as my own. Don't compare me to others. I've been admiring you for so long. And now that you're leaving your husband, nothing will stop me from winning you over. Now you won't get rid of me so easily. I'll go now, but I'll come back tomorrow. You need a closet fixed. I'll be back with tools." And he left, and Mary sat in the kitchen for a long time, not believing her ears. Mary walked out onto the steps of the building, squinting in the bright sun. In her hands was a huge bouquet of flowers. Her husband stood beside her. Jimmy was holding the baby in his arms and smiling broadly, and Mary was smiling. Stacy ran up to her with her suitor, who was soon to become her husband. Finally, Stacy had found her happiness too. Stacy squealed, looking at Mary and her son. "Oh, what a cutie! Honestly, he's so handsome!" Mary didn't reply. She just enjoyed the moment. Who would have thought that by divorcing Tom, she would find true happiness? She married Stacy's brother. He carried Mary in his arms, doted on her, and he accepted the child as his own. "This is our son, Mary darling. This is my son. I won't give either of you to anyone, remember that," he told her, stroking her belly in the last month of pregnancy. Mary was happy. She didn't think about her ex-husband, just as he didn't think about her. His fate didn't interest her. Only one thing was important to her: her new family, her beloved, cherished husband Jimmy dear, and their little son Leo. There is true love in this world. Now Mary knew that for sure.